Hi, how you doing?
How you going?
Joey, another Joe.
Joe for Joe. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just finished work, so I'm a bit dopey today, but I'm all right.
All right. Well, I'll try and keep it interesting for you so you don't fall asleep.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, it's a nice day here in Dublin for a change. So it's a bit of a rarity. So I've been soaking up the sun, as best I
Yeah.
can.
So that's where you're based in Dublin.
I am, yeah. What about you?
Nice. I'm in Albania at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm from Sheffield, but I've been traveling around. So yeah, just been going around Europe, really.
Cool. Nice. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Lovely to have you here. The This new album, which is out on the 9th of August. Um, Kurokuma, is that right?
Yeah, Kurokuma.
Kurokuma, yeah. And Of Amber and Sand is the name of the album. And Simon Glacken, thank him quickly, sent this on to us. And excuse me, it was the first time I actually listened to you as a band. And this is the beauty of doing what we do. We get sent loads of different albums and we discover little gems like this. And obviously I went back and listened to your debut, Born of Obsidian, and the thing that strikes me the most on between these two albums is the sound. Um, did you do anything differently in production this time round? It just sounds a lot beefier.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to give you a bit of a backstory on Born of Obsidian, we've made we've never tried really to hide the fact that we were disappointed with how that came out. And
Okay.
it's always difficult because obviously we were working with a producer. We were working with a producer which uh, we really looked up to and we really loved his past work. And it wasn't an ideal situation. We were meant to go to America to record with him, and it was 2020 and COVID struck. So we kind of had to scramble around for a studio. We ended up spending a lot of money on him and on the studio in the end, and he wasn't used to the studio. So things were thrown out a little bit compared to how he normally worked. And then when the mixes were coming back, they just weren't what we wanted at all. And so we just decided to kind of leave it there with him, and we had to go to my friend, who's a live sound engineer, because we had no money left at this point, and he said, "I'll give it a go." And so what we had in the debut album was, in our opinion, a really great bunch of songs, but they just got mangled a bit by the circumstances around the production, and it was just unfortunate what happened. I don't think it's an awful sounding album, but it's funny. The other day I did go back and listen to it after having had the new album in my ears for so long, and it was almost like, oh wow, kind of forget there is a difference. There's a huge difference, and yeah, I think we're just so pleased with this new one. It just sounds great. It sounds professional. It sounds like we sound live, and that's really great. But again, that's also a bit bittersweet because then we're like, it really drives home the fact that the stuff that people have been listening to up to this point isn't you at your best, I guess. So it's yeah, I'm just glad we're finally here now.
Yeah, and look, hats off to you as well for actually admitting that because you're creating a piece of art which has come from you guys, and you're sitting there saying, "Look, we know it wasn't our best," and to admit that is pretty brave. And I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but there is definitely the notable difference between the two where I listened to the new one first and was like, "Wow, this sounds great," and went back and I actually thought, is this the same band? Is this the same album? And look,
Yeah.
as you said, the songs are great. And I think when you listen to the new album, you've really found your sound and that level of production, whether you call it polished or bigged it up, but it just sounds massive.
Thanks. Yeah. And I agree with you. And, you know, it's funny because we spent so much less on this new album. And people who've kind of followed us and are friends with me, they'll know I've made a few. Well, I've made one video on that first album specifically because the cost did get out of control, and we had such high hopes for it. So we kind of put all this money in, and yeah, this new one we really just stripped it back. I don't know. We're all at a different place. We built up for so long to that first album. We were like planning it for years and years, and so we just wanted to do everything right. And yeah, the irony is it didn't go right. And then so this second one, we're just like, screw it, just get it done. Don't overthink it. We went to our mate Balti in Nottingham. Just cheap and cheerful, but he nails what he does, and he'd actually done, because he runs the studio as a venue. He'd done sound for us live multiple times, and so he knew what we were about. Whereas again, I don't think we had that with the first guy. So and we knew he'd made us sound good live. So it was just so simple and quick, and it wasn't too expensive, and it was just like bish bash bosh, there you go. And it's like, yeah, the whole thing's just really ironic to me.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's lessons learned with being your first album, and I'm assuming you self-funded it, right? Like you just
Yeah,
bands.
yeah, both of them pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. And the one thing you touched on there was saying how quickly it came together, and you may have answered this, but I'm going to ask anyway. The 2 years apart from the albums, 2.5 years, really. In the music business, certainly in the metal scene, that would seem like a very short period of time between albums. But I'm assuming because you had the album Obsidian done 2020 and you were good to go, COVID struck. Were you writing then during COVID, or did you have stuff left over for the new album?
Yeah, so we recorded the first one in October 2020, and it actually came out in February 2022.
Yeah.
And then we had, we had one song. One song's really old on the new album, so we wrote the rest. I don't know why we did it so quick. I think we just knuckled down, and once it started happening, it just, the riffs were flowing, and just going back to kind of, I spoke about me traveling. I don't know if that's going to make it to the final podcast. And Jake's had a kid and got married, and we knew these things were coming, so it was almost like a soft deadline of sorts that we knew was there, and that really pushed us along. And we kind of knew we wanted to get it done so we could move on with the stuff, in IRL. So yeah, it just worked out really well. We were practicing, but saying that, Jake was already living abroad with his wife, so he was like flying back, and we were doing it in bits, in like spurts. So I don't know. I think just when we set our minds to something, it just happens, and yeah, we're just a very focused band when we want to be.
Yeah, and I've spoke to a few bands who have members in different countries or different. I think when you live in the same country with different areas is one thing, but when you've got members living in different other countries, it's hard. And fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you look at it, the technology era we're living in helps for this cause of being apart, sending files by email and this and that. But did you, I assume like you were sending riffs to each other and saying this, and then...
No, I'm trying to think back, and I don't think we kind of really did that. I mean, Jake will send me something as in like, "Oh, look at this, I've written this, isn't it cool?" But it's not like I'll go away and write a drum part to it.
Yeah.
It was still very much, we're kind of like a band that pulls everything together in the room, and Jake is the guitarist, so he writes most of the riffs, not all. And it's the kind of thing where I then shape them and tweak them with him. I'm not a guitar player, but I'm good at kind of molding things after he's presented like the raw material. And so it was just a lot of that actually in the room. I don't think we used a lot of technology thinking about it.
Okay, that's surprising considering how far away you are from each other, you know. So kudos.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned there you are the drummer, Joe, and it's always nice to have. Uh, I say I'm a drummer. It's inverted commas, like, but I'm always interested to know about you know, because a lot of the time it's the front man who's interviewed or the guitarist, but from a drummer's point of view, you're literally backstage at the back of the stage. But I'm interested to know in terms of your kit, you know, what are you using? You know, bass, snare, how many toms, what setup have you got?
Um, my philosophy with my drum kit, I'm quite a minimalist guy in all areas of my life. I just
Okay.
like to keep things easy for myself. And you know, probably the worst part of being a drummer is you've got a lot more gear generally to
Yeah.
lug around. So I've always just tried to keep it really a small drum set. So I have obviously kick, snare, just a rack and a floor tom, and then I have hi-hat, ride, and crash, and that's it. So
So
pretty much the
you have a
bare minimum,
snare and a floor tom, that's it.
and a rack tom.
Oh, sorry, and a rack tom. Okay, cool. That's I was sort of hoping you were going to say that because you know you look at like Mike Portnoy or from Dream Theater with that ridiculous kit, and you just think it's so not disrespecting him, but I always think with smaller kits, you need to be more inventive in terms of the fills and stuff you play. And I always like it when I hear that, like yourself, you've only got a limited or a modest amount of stuff to work with, so you're really having to think with your brain. And I mean, I don't know in the future whether you're going to expand the kit or keep it the same. I mean, what's your thoughts?
No, I'm not going to expand it. I like, yeah, I've never quite thought of it, you know, in that creativity through limitations way. But now that you put it like that, I think there probably is an element of that. Um, I just like to keep things simple, and I think with Kurokuma, I don't know if you pick this up, but you know, our philosophy is just it's just keeping it simple and like raw, and um, there's no like bells and whistles to what we do. Really, it's not meant to feel like that. It's meant to just feel like just straight to the point, just like bludgeoning you basically. So I think keeping things fairly lean in the gear department probably helps us with that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you say you keep it simple, and this was something that really intrigued me about was your sound. And I don't like to pigeonhole bands, but obviously we're in an era where the metal genre is just like, you know, there's subgenres of subgenres. But yours was quite interesting, and the bio I got sent by Simon said like psych trio, something like that, and that sort of intrigued me. And then when I listened, especially the first song off the new album, which is an absolute ripper, by the way, like couldn't pick a better song to start with. I was like, okay, interesting, interesting. And then you do, as the album goes on, it does get a bit more expansive. I think you're probably doing yourself a bit of disservice by saying you're keeping it really simple. But there's a lot of
Yeah.
moving parts in there. And what would you describe as like Kurokuma's sound?
Really hard. You know, being in it, it's hard
Mm.
to describe it. I think, you know, going back to Born of Obsidian, that really did sum up a big part of, well, our first, what, 6, 7 years as a band where we started off as a doom band, but we were very much, even from the start, the whole point was to bring in influences from folk music at the very least. So you know, an easy kind of touch point there would be Sepultura.
Yeah.
And we weren't massively, we've never been massively influenced by Sepultura. We like them, but we didn't kind of look to them and go, we want to copy that. But I think we're in that ballpark, in my opinion, probably. We listen to a lot of Electric Wizard and
Mhm.
Conan and a band called Black Breath. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, yeah.
So we definitely had the metal, but at the same time, anyone who knows us, we're not just metal guys. We Jake at that time was showing me a lot of it's called folk electronica. It was a lot of electronic music that was coming out of Latin America at the time. And I was loving it. He'd send me loads of stuff from Argentina and Peru, and we'd get really hooked on that. And I used to live in Japan. I used to play the taiko drum in Japan. Our first bassist, George, was from Romania, and he played the darbuka. He grew up surrounded by kind of gypsy music traditions in Romania. So all three of us. Sorry, and Jake's, he's Armenian. His family are in Turkey, so there's always been that element to the band, because we get bored easily. So we never wanted to just start off and be like, right, we're a metal band.
Yeah.
There always had to be a point to it for us. We wanted to do something new. And so it was, how can we mix metal that we love with all these other influences from whatever region? And with Born of Obsidian, we kind of really locked everything down, and we collected a group of songs where it was like, these make sense. The feeling and the lyrical stuff is all from one kind of geographical area. And so that happened. That was Mesoamerica, ancient Mexico. And then it just kind of so happened that this next one was a collection of songs that we felt was influenced by a more Middle Eastern sound.
Yeah.
Jake was perhaps bringing in more of his kind of Armenian, Turkish kind of feeling. I listened to a lot of stuff from that part of the world myself. So yeah, I don't know, we're kind of falling into this rhythm where we seem to pick a region per album, I guess. But anyone who's seen us live over the years will know that, we'll have drums and cowbells and darbukas on stage. Like, rhythm is really what we're about. So I think when I say we're a simple band in some ways, I say that in the sense that rhythm is at the heart of it. So we're stripping it back to the primal force of rhythm. And but then we do get very deep and textured kind of within that. I know there's a lot of complex stuff going on, but the real heart of it is meant to be just about kind of power, really. It's just meant to be about conveying just that rhythmic force, that percussive, sometimes tribal, ancient feel. That's really what it means to me. There might be a lot of stuff stacked on top of that, but really at the heart of it, it's meant to feel timeless and powerful.
Yeah, very well explained, and pretty much what I was saying and thinking as well with the album, with the different themes to it. And I'm just going to throw a couple of things that so me and the other lads on the podcast, we've all listened to this album. We were going back and forth with comments about it, and we were saying the sound, and we said a couple of things came out, and the first one was like Nail Bomb and Sepultura. And then the other thing came out, especially on the first track, was like early Machine Head days. So I think that for listeners who have perhaps not listened to you before, that gives a fairly good idea of where we stood with it. But I think definitely as the album goes on, it grows so much and it becomes real expansive. And it's sort of like a layered album where each listen, you're picking up something new. But I have to say, it's an absolutely ferocious album. It really is. And I'm so glad we got sent this because, we're, as a podcast ourselves, we are trying to, promote underground bands and people we've never heard of. And if we can get an extra couple of listeners for the bands, is great. But like I said, when we discover stuff like this, I'll be looking out for tours coming up that you'll be on, or bills and festivals, whatever, and 100% will be going there. So it's great.
I really appreciate that. And we're at a funny place as a band because I don't know what it is about us, and I don't want to get my violin out, but we don't I think there's a lot of people that don't know about us that would like us for whatever reason. And I think it's because we don't fall into that easy category, maybe. You know, we used to be part of the Doom scene where it was like, you know, when we put an album out or an EP, it's like, it's a Doom EP. And now, like you say, Simon, we had that conversation. How do we even describe ourselves at this point? Because
Yeah.
there's like 10 different genres. Each song is a different genre. And I also think a lot of people have it in their head that we are still Doom, and Doom's kind of not that fashionable right now. But we're just not at the end of the day. So I'm really glad that, you know, you've just come to it afresh and just heard it with no preconceptions and gone, wow, I like it. And we'd like more of that, I guess.
Well, I mean, I've said it to loads of my friends, like this album's coming out, mark it down because I think you'll really like it. And it'd be it's a shame that, like you said, people are not fully aware of you as a band, but you know, this album is brilliant. If you are listening, this album is absolutely brilliant. And if you like, you know, stuff that is not predictable in your metal, then this would be an album for you for sure. And like I said, I mean, have you released singles yet?
Yeah, we've released two singles, and they were
Which?
the first track,
Oh yeah, okay.
and then Crux Ansata, which is kind of the penultimate
Yeah.
track. And I guess with those two, we went with the most easy to digest. So if you know that there's more weird stuff, let's put it that way. Like the two singles are probably the most normal sounding tracks,
Yeah.
obviously, and then they get a bit weird after that.
Well,
So,
if you're all right with it, I might put "I Am Forever" at the end of this interview.
yeah, of course, yeah.
And for people who have listened to it and are intrigued, then make sure you watch the end because it is an absolute ripper of a track. And for yourself, songs off the album, is there anything in particular that you're really proud of that is going to be a live staple in your set?
Well, the last track, which is like the 10-minute closer,
Yeah.
I think that's you know, if I had to pick one, I'd say that's probably the best track we've ever written. And we wrote it in 2017 with our old bassist. And
Okay.
um, I don't know. I just think it's kind of like there's a lot going on there, and it just works. It just works. Everything just fell into place, and I'm really glad. You know, this is what I'm talking about, where we kind of save stuff because we couldn't put it on Born of Obsidian because it wasn't the right vibe. So
Oh,
we've saved that one all the way from 2017 and gone right now. Now it works. And actually, that was the album. That's the song that informed the lyrical content, which spread to every other song on the album because it was the first one that we knew was going on it. And so we just took the lyrical theme and it ended up in all the other songs. So I'm really proud of that one. You know, obviously it reminds me of all the times that we played it with George, our old bassist, and I just think it's a banger, and I just think it's a really nice album closer. And but apart from that, in terms of the newer songs, I'd say track three. I don't know if you remember, it's called Fen John, and it. I think what we do with songs like that is we try and just almost disorientate the listener because what we try and do is start off point A and kind of have it in our heads. We want to get to point B at some point in the song. How are we going to get from there to here? Because they're two completely different things. And, you know, it starts off with a beat which is called Dabka, which is like Middle Eastern, it's like from places like Palestine and Lebanon. So we literally took that rhythm and kind of the type of melody you'd hear over the top of it, and we're playing it in our three-piece. And it is I think it's a really unique thing to hear like a metal band play that. So that, but it doesn't sound like metal, you know? It sounds like something weird. So what we did is we knew kind of we wanted to get to just this like almost like metalcore, hardcore, just like stompy thing in the middle. And it's like, how can we do that without breaking the flow or like using any tricks like sudden stops or anything like that? How can we kind of build and build and build and make sure each transition is smooth and, you know, so it's almost like that thing, it heats up gradually. So, but if you were to drop yourself back into the start, you'd be like, wow, is this even the same song? Does that make sense? That's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
totally, yeah.
so I'm really proud of that one because we've basically got two within that same song, 2 points that just sound nothing like each other. And that's just we've done that before on other songs and it's something kind of fun we like to do. So
Yeah, and I mean, look, metal, as we said in general, like that, there's a lot of genres of metal, but I think, you know, I'm a huge black metal fan. I'm a big Opeth, my favorite band of all
I
time.
can tell from all your posters.
Yeah, yeah. But so I'm a big prog fan as well. And as we get older, sorry, you know, as time progresses with metal, things have been done before, and there's only, you know, so many riffs you can write. So bands are naturally progressing and bringing new things in. A perfect example would be Imperial Triumphant when they brought in jazz into into black metal. So I think I'm really happy when albums like this do catch you off guard and, you know, keeps you interested, keeps you guessing. And I assume that would translate to the live show as well when, you know, people are sort of like digging this bit and then not sure what's going to happen next. And that's only good for the metal scene. So sorry, I just went off a bit of tangent then, but
I mean, yeah, what I'd say to that is that in terms of the live show, I'm not, yeah, again, I can't step outside the band and go and watch Kurokuma from, so I don't know what it's like exactly, but my perception when we play live is that I wouldn't say it necessarily works in our favor, because I think if you go and see, like when we played Damnation, you go and see, like we went to watch, Undeath,
yeah,
and you know what you're getting with them. I mean, it's in the name.
yeah, yeah. It's like
So
Animal Corpse, you know.
yeah, yeah, and so the crowd rock up and they're like, right, this is going to be 30 minutes of all out death metal and we can just go fucking nuts. And they do, and that's what happens. Whereas with us, even if you know who we are, there's there's never like more than 2 minutes where it's like the same thing.
Yeah,
So while we do kind of get off on just throwing all that shit out there, I do think that sometimes people in the audience, especially if you've seen us for the first time, they never feel like they can fully dive into it because they don't know what's coming. They literally we could change like genre
yeah,
like that, and so I feel like that kind of works against us in a way. We do have pits and stuff like that. But then we also have sometimes we just have those crowds and you can tell they're like just taking it in. And they've not they can't do much more than that because
yeah,
it's left and right turns all
yeah,
over the shop. That's my perception anyway, kind of looking out at
yeah.
the crowd.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm annoyed that I've now heard you and won't get to see you without hearing the album, if you know what I mean. So I could take it at face value like that. But I am intrigued to watching your live shows, which is I'll come back to in a minute. Just penultimate question, Joe. This is coming out on the 9th. Are you doing vinyl, CDs, merch, and all that jazz?
Yeah, yeah. So people can pre-order it on the Bandcamp. We've got vinyl up, got two variants. You know, playing into the theme and the name, it's called an encased in amber variant.
Nice.
So it's like black within translucent orange.
Lovely.
So we've got two, and then the black vinyl, obviously, and then we've got CDs and obviously digital as well. And then we've got like other bits, like we've got a T-shirt with the mantis on it, and then our bassist girlfriend runs like a candle shop. So we haven't put these online yet. I need to put them online, but we've got amber scented candles with like pieces of with amber rocks inside.
Oh,
So they're quite cool, and there's a limited amount of them, so I've got to get the bundle up on Bandcamp. But yeah,
nice, nice. Well, save me one of those candles actually, because I'll get one of them for sure.
okay, sure.
Depending on the shipping. And finally, Joe, before I let you go, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks so much for your time. I know you've had a long day at work, as you said. But just finally, what's the touring situation looking like on this album cycle?
I mean, there are no shows booked in. We are in a funny place as a band, as I say. So I decided I wanted to go traveling, and that's why we got the album done, and that's why we had like our last run of shows at the end of last year. Jake's just got married and he's had a kid. Zach, our bassist, has just had twins.
Oh,
and so it's kind of all come at once, and perhaps not the ideal time to be releasing an album when we can't or don't want to play shows, but it's just how it's all happened. And yeah, I don't know. I keep saying to people, I think the next time we'll play a gig, I imagine, because I'm not planning on coming back to the UK anytime soon. I imagine that it'll be like someone will get in touch and we'll be like, or they'll be like, you know, we've got this festival. Do you wanna come back? And you know, they'll pay us a bit, and it'll make it all worthwhile. That's for the time being. That's all I can imagine is going to happen to kind of tempt us back to play a show. I mean, we've done it. We've done it for 10 years. We've played all over, you know, different continents, and just been up and down the UK. We did it and it was great, but we don't want to do that anymore. We want to play a few big shows here and there. So hopefully we'll get those offers at some point.
Oh, absolutely. No, fingers crossed that I will see you at some point. Joe, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on the album. It's out on the 9th, and if you're listening to, make sure you pick it up, because it's an absolute belter of an album. And Joe, if I don't speak to you at a show, maybe we'll talk again when the next album's coming out.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, and thanks for having us on.
Thank you, Joe.
Cheers.
Yeah, get to bed.